Yes, you can create perfect course description that describe your high school. My name is Binz, and I'm the home scholar. My mission is to help parents homeschool high school. And let me explain homeschool course descriptions in a way that will actually make sense to you instead of totally freak you out. Let's talk about first, why would you write course descriptions? Well, you see, some colleges will want course descriptions from homeschoolers. They want to know the rigor of your homeschool. They want to know what you taught in math or English. You can actually increase your scholarships by providing course descriptions for your student because academic rigor is rewarded by colleges. So you want to make sure that you're providing proof of that academic rigor. So some colleges will require or request or at a minimum appreciate the work that you've gone through to create course descriptions. And often that work will result in scholarships. You see, homeschool course descriptions, what they do is they provide this proof that your curriculum was challenging. Whether you pulled resources together on your own or used this course description for this curriculum or that curriculum, colleges are not usually familiar with homeschool curriculum. So explaining it in words and numbers can really help them to understand the rigor of your school. You don't have to use a school at home curriculum. You don't have to provide online classes or classroom instruction. You don't have to have outside teachers, but it will benefit you to have course descriptions. And it can make the difference, especially in my experience, make the difference in scholarships. Now, again, some colleges will say, oh, we don't need that. And that's fine. But you see, their goal is to get your child into college. And perhaps your goal is different. Perhaps your goal is to be able to afford to send your child to college. And for that reason, you do need scholarships. Universities don't want to put, generally speaking, a barrier between you and application. They don't want to give you a hurdle that you have to overcome. They want more people applying than they can possibly find room for. But our goal as parents is to try to get our children scholarships so that they can afford to go. So let me give you some of the ingredients of a perfect course description. Okay. When it comes to course descriptions, your goal is to provide as much information as you possibly can, but never more than 1 page per class. Okay. That's the upper boundary, 1 page per class. And the lower boundary is as much as you can fit into that 1 page per class. So the first ingredient is a paragraph that describes what you did. You know, here's what we did in science. Here's what we did in math. The second ingredient is a list of what you used. Now that can be the curriculum you used, textbooks, but it can be anything that you added, any literature pieces, any field trips, any natural learning, mismatch of curriculum, even things that you started and then you let go of, or you only used 3 pieces here and 5 pieces of that, you still put that information on your course description. And the third ingredient is a description of how you evaluated your children. Now, you have to be careful with that because you evaluate in ways other than tests all the time. And so I encourage you to have a course description that describes how you have evaluated with tests and beyond tests. All right. In my homeschool, yes, I'm a real homeschooler. Roughly half of my transcripts had classes that had a test, and the other half of the classes on my transcript had no tests. And yet I still evaluated my children and I still wrote how I evaluated my kids. So that's what I want you to think about. Those are the kind of rough outline, what you did, what you used, how you graded. Now then, how do you write that 1 page description? that can be a little intimidating. So what I've developed is 3 writing prompts to get you started. Okay. Think about it this way. When you are teaching your children to write and they're looking at that blank page and oh mom, I can't do it, and they complain and they don't even know how to get started. You can use the same method with yourself to teach you how to overcome that white page. Sometimes just starting the sentence. Here, honey, let me start the sentence for you. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Here's your first writing prompt. I want you to write down, in this class, the student will, because the number one impediment to writing a good course description is parents are freaking out about, what is the tone? What is the verb tense? Is it future tense? Is it past tense? And do I sound stuffy? Do I say Susie? Do I say the student? Right? It's very confusing. So my writing prompt starts with, in this class, the student will. And that explains a verb tense. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter what verb tense you use. What matters is that you overcome the white page. Here, let me give you a verb tense so you will overcome the white page and start writing. And then it says, the student will, so that you know it's kind of stuffy and formal and you don't refer to the student by first name, etc. Second writing prompt. The student will study blank with blank. Okay. The student will study blank with blank. So the student will study Algebra 1 using Saxon, Algebra 1 by John Saxon. Okay. So you're just explaining what it is. The student will study blank with blank. The third writing prompt, this one's really easy. Okay. Topics include, okay, your third sentence might be topics include. And then after you write down topics include, you open up the textbook and you look at the table of contents. Okay. The table of contents will have all of the topics that were included. One word of warning here. When you say topics include, that is the beginning of a sentence. So uncapitalize all of the words that were capitalized in the table of contents unless it's a formal name. Okay. So for example, you might say, in this class, the student will study the concepts of Algebra 1 using Saxon Algebra 1 by John Saxon. Topics include, and then you list all those freakish words that they talk about in math. Okay. Now, when you think about grades, how do you describe how you graded? Well, it's tempting to think only about tests, but let me explain. A teacher in a school has to evaluate 30 kids. And so when they want to know who read the book, the only way they can find that out is by giving a test to figure out who read the book. But when you're homeschooling, you know your child read the book because you saw them read the book, right? Their eyes were on the page. They were turning pages at the appropriate time per page. You know, we just know that they're reading. So a lot of what we think about as grades is pretty different than what school teachers need to think about grades. And I encourage you to think of how you have evaluated as a wide range of different things we can evaluate uniquely. So when you're writing it on your course description, you can provide just an overview of your method of evaluation. You could say, you know, I decided it was going to be 40% tests and 40% daily work and 10% midterm and 10% final. Although, to be quite honest, I found that pretty overwhelming. I like it to be even, or I don't know how to do the math. Okay. But, you know, you could do it that way. Or on your course description, you could just provide a final conclusion, right? The final grade for Algebra 1 was 94%. This is an A or a 4.0 in our school. Okay. And that's enough information for some people. For other people, these are usually the binder queens who have every piece of paper their child has ever produced. Okay. But for some people, like myself, right, you could provide detailed grading criteria with the individual scores for every test or quiz or paper or lab report. Okay. So it might say, Tests and exams are 50% of the grade. Classwork and homework is 50% of the grade. And then you'd say chapter 1, here's the test result. Chapter 2, here's the test result. Chapter 3, here's the test result. And that is an option as well. That makes your course description longer. It makes it look like you're a super intense homeschooler, even though probably you were homeschooling in a very normal, natural way. And so that is your breadth of options when you're creating course descriptions. So let me give you a couple of tips for course descriptions. Number one, you can cut and paste course descriptions from time to time. If you have taken an online class and paid for it, usually you can cut and paste the course description that they provide. My comprehensive record solution has hundreds of cut and pastable course descriptions that you can use for standard courses. And once you've cut and pasted it, you can modify it in any way that you want. You can copy from products that you've purchased. So if you have purchased a product from the Institute for Excellence in Writing, for example, and they have provided a course description for poetry, then you can use the course description that they have provided. You do want to avoid plagiarism. Okay, that's important. And I tell people to avoid plagiarism by using the Starbucks method. Okay, let me explain. Well, using the Starbucks method, you read the different course descriptions that other people have written on that particular, I don't know, American history or whatever. And you read all these course descriptions on American history, and then you nibble your cookies, and then you have your biscotti, and then you sip on your mocha, and then you spin around in your chair 3 times, and then you write. Okay. This is a strategy we use with our children all the time. We don't call it the Starbucks method with our children. We call it learning, right? So you learn what is included in an American history class, and then you write about what you have just learned. Next tip is definitely describe your delight-directed learning courses with course descriptions. They're neither more important or less important. It is equally important to have course descriptions on every possible class that you have. Some colleges are looking for your descriptions in math or science because that's what they care about. Some are looking for, well, how in the world did she teach this? And they're looking at the delight-directed learning. I interacted with one college during the admission process, and they said, oh, don't send us course descriptions. We don't want it. And ultimately, my children were rejected at that college because we didn't have test scores in foreign language. But we had course descriptions for foreign language. And so I said, please refer to the course descriptions that I have sent you. Look from this page to this page, and you will find the course descriptions for 3 years of French and 3 years of Latin. And that made the difference. It proved the academic rigor of my children, and they responded. They gave us admission. They gave us their best scholarships as well. So to go from no, you can't get in, to you're in with the best possible scholarships, all because of course descriptions, that really highlights the importance of describing each class. I would have never thought that, just a foreign language course description could make the difference in that. All right. So the next tip is to imitate a school online description when you find them. There is this magical lookup device called Google. Chances are you will find a course description for that class somewhere in the universe. In all of public education, there's probably going to be a class that includes the phrase crochet or knitting, right? So again, you look up all of those different course descriptions for the thing you're trying to describe, and then you put it into your own words. You learn the courses and then you write it yourself. And then remember that you can always explain unusual circumstances by using a cover letter. I used a cover letter with my course descriptions, and it was so simple. It was just enclosed are the comprehensive records for my son. Here's his name. And that was it. That was my cover letter. But you can also use a cover letter to your advantage. So it's your best friend if you need to explain something like taking 5 years to finish high school because of health troubles or failing grades, but then you started homeschooling, or a change in school situations or whatever. Now, remember that as you're writing your course descriptions, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've been a super intense, academically driven tiger mom, right? It means that you've homeschooled naturally, but that you've written it down in words and numbers that colleges understand. Perfect record keeping is not required. I personally did not have perfect record keeping, but I made sure that I wrote course descriptions for my children. And once I did, I realized how awesome my normal nerdy kids looked in black and white. And I can almost guarantee that that's going to happen to you as well. When you write your course descriptions, it can be shocking to see how great they look in black and white, how fantastic they look when you have finally written it all down and there's no eye rolling and there's no sass or attitude. It's only what they completed, not what you didn't get to, not the curriculum that failed, but what your child actually learned. And it's surprising how awesome they can look. And in fact, that was one of the ways that I comforted myself as I was going through all of the work creating these course descriptions. I thought, well, at least I'll have an excellent record of everything that I've been through. It's a culminating senior project for us as homeschool parents. And so I was very glad that I did it. And after we created these comprehensive records, I realized that I wanted to share that information with other people. Once we were notified that our course descriptions had a huge amount to do with my children winning full tuition scholarships. And I shared my comprehensive records with my friends who visited us for our graduation party. And they kept saying, "Oh, Lee, you've got to teach people how to do that." And that's one of the reasons why I help parents make course descriptions today, was because I had such great success and my friends were encouraging me to share. So I don't want you to feel like you have to be perfect, but I do want you to describe your homeschool, because it's amazing how awesome they will look, even though you and I know they weren't perfect children all the time, because we live in the real world, because we're actually homeschoolers. Well, I hope that that explains everything that has gotten you started creating course descriptions. Course descriptions are not something that you can just wiggle your nose and they show up one day. It can take some consistent work over the 4 years of high school. And I would love to help you with that, with the comprehensive record solution. If you go to comprehensiverecordsolution.com, you can get more information on that. And the comprehensive record solution will give you all of the training that you need, the tools and the templates with the cut and pastable course descriptions that you can use for most standard homeschool courses, and a lot of delight directed learning courses as well. So learn more about course descriptions, and I hope you win great scholarships too. Take care.